Pride and Prejudice, Chapter 4, third video. Every time I end a video, hurriedly, as I did the last one, please note that at 15 to 16 minutes, my camera automatically cuts me, and sometimes the battery is about to be over. And sometimes I don't understand technology a lot, but sometimes when I'm cut, all the work I have done is just completely lost, So please bear with me, alright? Bear with me when it comes to those end of videos, right? So actually I would like to go back to the end of the last video I was in a hurry, because I didn't give you a very important word, that is manner. Okay, manner, I put a nice picture there in our Quizlet, is a landed estate. All right, so it's keep in mind that state here, I think I've told you before, right? Well, but it's always nice to remember. Estate, we're talking about property, right? I really don't know if I've mentioned, but keep in mind real estate agency. Okay, so that's a manner. Let me go back to the end of last video, okay? And then maybe I'll have some questions. Mr. Bingley intended it likewise. Intended it likewise what? Remember that his father didn't have a property, alright? He would just rent places. And he intended to buy a big property. Apparently in this system it's more status if you have a property for your own. Mr. Bingley intended it likewise, and sometimes made choice of his county. But as he was now provided with a good house and the liberty of a manor, it was doubtful to many of those who best knew the easiness of his temper, whether he might not spend the remainder of his days in Netherfield and leave the next generation to purchase. His sisters were very anxious for his having an estate of his own. But though he was now established only as a tenant, remember the tenant is like the opposite of the landlord. The landlord is the owner of the property that rents out the property, right? The tenant is the guy who rents from the landlord. He was now established only as a tenant. Miss Bingley, the sister, was by no means unwilling to preside at his table, nor was Mrs. Hurst, who had married a man of more fashion than fortune, less disposed to consider his house as her home when it suited her, right? Because, of course, the kind of status it would give. Mr. Bingley had not been of age 2 years. Explain that to me, please. Mr. Bingley had not been of age 2 years. Okay, answer. First of all, it's interesting to understand of age. When you come of age, you become a major in opposition to a minor, okay? So 21. But he had not been of age 2 years. If he had been of age 2 years, then 21, 22, 23. Okay? If the sentence was Mr. Bingley had just been of age 2 years, right? But he had not been of age, so it means that he was almost 23. All right. he was almost 23 when he was tempted by an accidental recommendation to look at the Netherfield house. He did not look at it and into it for half an hour. Sorry, he did look at it and into it for half an hour, was pleased with the situation and the principal rooms, satisfied with what the owner said in its praise, and took it immediately. It seems kind of pointless to describe how he rented the house, but I think it says something about his personality, right? So that's my next question to you. What can you infer about Mr. Bingley's personality from the renting of the place? Answer. We can infer that he is impressed very easily, and he is very hasty. I gave you that word, right? He is very hasty taking decisions, right? So, oh, it's a beautiful house. What a beautiful house. He didn't even analyze all the rooms of the house. He didn't, invited other people to do so. He took a look at it for half an hour. And, the owner of the house said it was a fantastic place and said, oh, I take it. Compare that to the way not fell in love, right? But compare that to the way he got he admired, Jane. Yeah. He was very impressed. That's the word I was looking for, impressed. He was very, very impressed by Jane, right? She's the most beautiful woman ever. So, this is part of his personality. We're not saying that it's a bad thing. We're not saying that because of that he's being fooled by his own vision or anything like that. We're just saying that this is the way he is. Between him and Darcy, there was a very steady relationship in spite of the great opposition of character. Bingley was endeared to Darcy by easiness, openness, ductility of his temper, though no disposition could offer a greater contrast to his own. And though with his own he never appeared dissatisfied. Again, we have something complex here, right? Between him and Darcy, there was a very steady relationship that would go on and on and on. In spite of the great opposition of characters, they were very different. Bingley was endeared to Darcy by the easiness, openness, ductility of his temper. Keep in mind, ductility comes from, I put in our list there, ductile, right? Ductile. What is ductile? Able to undergo change of form without breaking. Capable of being molded and shaped. Plastic. A little bit like pliant. Remember pliancy from a previous video? So, pliant, ductile, pliancy, ductility. So he was very flexible of his temper. Though no disposition could offer a greater contrast to his own. He really admired him, even though the difference between the two personalities were huge. And though with his own he never appeared dissatisfied. What is that sentence about? Let's imagine I admire you very much. I admire you a lot. I think you are a fantastic person, and I admire the way you conduct your life. But I do the opposite of what I do. So, logically, maybe I couldn't be, or I could be dissatisfied with myself, so I should try to be more like you. That's not the case. The case here is, I admire you a lot. I admire the way you conduct your life. I conduct my life very differently from the way you conduct your life, or my personality is very different from your personality. And I like my personality a lot, and I admire my personality, and I can admire your personality as well. That's the point of this. And though with his own he never appeared dissatisfied. On the strength of Darcy's regard, Bingley had the firmest reliance, and of his judgement the highest opinion. In understanding, Darcy was the superior. Okay? Darcy could understand things better than Bingley. Okay? In understanding, Darcy was the superior. Bingley was by no means deficient, but Darcy was clever. He was at the same time haughty, reserved, and fastidious in his manners, though well-bred, were not inviting. Well, Mr. Darcy had a very nice breed. Remember, we've talked about breed in a previous video, right? Okay, so he's very noble. You would expect a man of high breed to have, to be very courteous. And if the person is very courteous, you would expect that person to be very inviting, right? Not Mr. Darcy. Mr. Darcy was very well bred, but he was not inviting. It means that inviting, his personality wouldn't invite you to interact with him. Okay, he had a certain kind of reserve. Keep in mind, the narrator is doing that all the time. What? The narrator all the time is showing us one characteristic and saying, but don't be fooled, it's not too much of that characteristic. Even though there is this characteristic, there is also this characteristic. And our character here has both of them, or is in the middle, or anything like that. Okay? Now get this visual thing I did here, and let's put it in practice regarding Mr. Darcy. Look, his manners, though well-bred, so his manners were well-bred, he was not inviting, right? That's why you see throughout the book lots of though, but, however, okay, even though, and etc. Okay? Remember Elizabeth describing Jane, right? She's very smart, she can perceive things very well, but even though that's true, she has a good opinion of everybody, right? But even though she has a good opinion of everybody, that's not planned, She is, she honestly have that opinion. It's not just a ostentatious opinion. In that respect, his friend had greatly the advantage. Meaning that in that respect, Bingley was better than Darcy. Bingley was sure of being liked wherever he appeared. Darcy was continually giving offense. People got offended around Darcy. And you can imagine if it makes sense, if Bingley, is very warm, he gets excited very easily. I keep in mind, imagining like Mr. Bingley taking a look at the property. Wow, that's a beautiful room. This is such a nice place. This is the best place I've ever seen. Of course you're going to like a person like that, all right? And remember his remarks about the ball? He said, wow, I've never seen so many beautiful women in one place in all of my life. He was very impressed, And then, of course, all the women in the room would like him as well, right? Remember the dynamic of the the ball there, right? Mr. Darcy was cold and distant, and even though he had a higher fortune and apparently he was more attractive than Bingley, right? As the evening passed, people liked him less and less, right? Because he was reserved. He wouldn't, start paying compliments to everybody. Mr. Bingley, on the other hand, would pay compliments to everybody, and what's more, they were not pretended. They were real compliments because he was really impressed by people.